Hi everyone, welcome back to the Supply Chain Lab. It seems we've started a tradition, UJ and Laria. Every year we kick off with an episode between the three of us. The last one that we did was live. This one, unfortunately, we don't have a live audience, but I think we still have a great conversation for today where we're talking about why operational excellence is not a strategy and what service design basically reveals about the supply chain. I think for those that don't know, we have Asko and Auntie. I think you guys should reintroduce yourselves until everybody knows what you're doing. We also have Dr. Asko, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Asko Mononen from Laurea University of Applied Sciences, from Finland, Nordic countries, from Europe. So once we left from there, so it was about 30 centimeters of snow and so forth, so pretty cold, so we're happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asko. My name is Antti Keskitalo. I work at Laurea University of Applied Sciences. 80% of my time I work as a senior lecturer. I'm teaching topics like HR, management, leadership, and most of all, service design and design thinking. One day a week I'm doing my PhD research for the University of Oulu, which is up north there in Finland. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully we'll also have a Dr. Auntie.
Yes, a couple of years perhaps. Yeah. But now you got me a little bit pressured. So.
You have it on record.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think we should just kick off the conversation around how a lot of organizations are heavily reliant on operational improvement through automation and efficiency. How would you guys define service design beyond the aesthetics of customer expectations or customer touchpoints?
Well, first of all, I think that the service design is the kind of architecture of how actual work actually flows. The structures, incentives, behaviors, human behavior and interactions that shape our everyday experience. I want to highlight that I deem that it's not a surface level. It's most of all, it's a system level thing. And still I think that it's good to define basically about how we see the service design. So most of all, it's the practice of designing service and most of all, holistic and highly collaborative approach to generate value for both the end service users and the company. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of behind that there's this design thinking philosophy, and like the service design is like one part of that, and you can apply this both philosophy and the tool set and so forth, like for different purposes. But like one of the keywords is like this end user centricity. That like instead of like putting at the end of the project or process or product, like you try to make it beautiful at that stage, you rather start with the customers and end users in mind. You involve them, you do collaborative development, research development, and so forth.
Okay, so basically it's like intentional system design, basically.
Yes.
And would you say that operational excellence and intentional system design is the same thing?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think that operational excellence is something that is optimizing what already exists.
Okay.
And whereas system design starts by questioning of whether it should exist at all. However, operational excellence without experience architecture is just kind of, maybe a polishing complexity. So we need to start to look at things a little bit like different way. Yeah.
Yeah, and continuing from that, so first we need to kind of find the right problem that we are solving.
Yeah.
Now we are using in the service design quite a lot of that time on that. And once we know what we are kind of trying to solve, so then we start to develop. And only after that, so then comes to kind of operations where you try to do the, for example, operational excellence and make sure that everything's kind of running smoothly.
And if it's already designed, is this something you can improve later on, or is it one of those, once it's designed, the company's kind of screwed?
I think you can design, but only locally.
Okay.
Only locally. So I mean, in a spotty way, I mean that you can get some islands of efficiency, but still the no improvement of the overall flow on the overall experience. By that you are ending up only optimizing simple like symptoms. Yeah.
And maybe continuing from that, like there's certain parts where you can do the kind of gradual development. So that's one thing. But like second is that like if you happen to have a horse to start with and you are trying to go to kind of Formula 1 race, so it doesn't work with just a minor tuning. So you really need to kind of design something from the start.
Okay. And as service design professionals, I have to ask you as a supply chain person, how do you view the supply chain as a service design professional?
Yeah, but I think supply chain as a system, supply chain as a kind of ecosystem, and I see like a lot of co-creation and co-development possibilities there. I think traditionally, at least from Finnish and Nordic point of view, the sin has been that it's been kind of broken process, that like every company in the value chain is having like their own things, and for example the data doesn't flow, so the predictions are a bit late or non-existing and so forth, so everything is a little bit kind of reactive. But if we can get with the service design and the kind of co-development to the phase that like we have the data flowing through, so that enables many kind of beautiful things.
I really have to say that I love already this discussion because we are coming from different backgrounds and seeing the world like through different lenses. When I start to see from the scratch, in the logistics chain, I see relationships between humans, handovers, cooperation, and lots of different decision points. So it's not just logistics. It's a, first of all, behavioral ecosystem. We have different types of incentives. Those are like based on formal decisions. What we want to use as an incentives, and they are affecting our behavior and further decisions on the field. So it's very important to see it as a behavioral ecosystem. Yeah.
I like how you brought in the behavioral aspect of it, because I think when we think about the supply chain, we just think of the flow of goods and information and never the behavior. However, a supply chain does impact the behavior of people internal to the organization and external to the organization as well. So I'd like to ask you guys, how does system design influence the behavior of employees and suppliers, and I guess managers as well?
First of all, I think that we humans, we tend to adapt to the system's overall architecture. So you get what you measure. Depending on the incentives, and it shapes our behavior, it shapes our everyday decision making. But some elements, if we try to add there, is, first of all, is the visibility and how we see that the importance of different kind of information sharing practices. It enhances our collaboration, and how we are consciously building those kind of spots for people to collaborate actively. And final one element that we quite often tend to forget is that we need to consciously try to take into account and visualize power dynamics within this chain and the networks. Yeah.
I see the kind of this holistic point of view in a way that like whatever capacity you try to build in a company, so you need to have like first of all kind of data and the IT infrastructures, then the processes, meaning the ways how people work together, and then of course people's competencies. So if one of or several of these are missing, or if they are kind of misaligned, so then you won't get kind of smooth operations, or operational excellence is not enabled from an organizational perspective.
Yeah, I like how you guys, because if I think about the supply chain and I think about it from a customer perspective, so we see how the growth of social media impacts people's behavior. So maybe we'll say a popular social media person posts about a particular brand. Let's say they post about a bottle of water. Then everybody kind of goes to buy that water, and organizations didn't anticipate that the demand would spike. So I can see it from like externally, this is how behavior is driven within the supply chain. And then if I think about internally, if you are in an organization where you're consistently under pressure, for example, let's say you're a truck driver, you're consistently under pressure, you have to pick up stock and drop it off somewhere else in a particular short space in time.
Yeah.
You then find that the drivers then are not following the road rules. They're always in a rush. They're not completing their checks in time because they're just trying to move from this point to the next point so that they don't get penalized by that. So that you can kind of see now you're incentivizing the wrong behavior by tracking something like time versus, I don't know, safety or anything else. Yeah.
Right. And maybe one point of view is that like we have one company in Finland called verkkokauppa.com. That's like an e-commerce and retail for electronics. It's a massive company, and they have like automized pretty nicely their kind of warehousing. Like they have a lot of robotics and automatics in the warehouses. Because of this, they can promise, like in Helsinki, the capital region of Finland, that like we guarantee the 1 hour delivery. And instead of like trying to build kind of the last mile process themselves, so they said like let's take like Uber Eats, like it's, we have Wolt in Finland, and so we take that and utilize it, and like basically they have very quick kind of picking and packing at like automized, and then like they're utilizing the existing network of these Uber drivers basically.
The new thing is that we have started already to integrate more and more basics of systems thinking when we are teaching people, even in the basics of business courses and logistics courses, since I think we need to see more critical thinking in the field so that you're able to also challenge existing views and see the bigger picture, because everyone needs to be able to challenge whether those existing metrics and incentives they are, creating like local optimizations, because we need to play the right ball together and be in the same field and see the overall picture, because otherwise, little by little, we start to create kind of unwanted behavior. We start to hide issues, information. We are little by little creating more and more organizational silos, producing local efficiency. And little by little we see that we have created wrong kind of organizational culture that is really like going opposite direction what we have measured in the strategy and what are those long-term goals and our vision is.
I like how you're bringing that up. So then how do you use, because you said once a process is poorly designed, you kind of need to rebuild it from scratch. You can't fix a badly designed, if I understood what you guys said correctly. So how do you then use service design to kind of pick up the organizational blind spots? Like maybe something that, because maybe this process was designed prior to the internet, and the company has been using that same process, and maybe it served the company well at that time, but for like now, that process kind of needs to be redesigned to match how the world currently exists. How do you use service design to kind of investigate like whether this process needs to be like updated and how it can be fixed?
So I guess you start with the end users, like who are the end users of the whole thing. Of course, during the process, like there might be internal stakeholders, like different parts of the processes and different parts of the supply chain and so forth. It's a tricky question because, like, if you think about like a traditional banking, so they have like systems that have been there from like 80s and 90s or even 70s, which are really in the core, and then they have been patched on the top, and it's really difficult to change the kind of IT system that is driving everything and slowing basically down. So in that case, like you either need to have like a very big investment plan and kind of rebuild the base, and then you can start doing like more agile things on the top. Or like in worst case, like you might have that like it's just so much legacy systems that like you need kind of small internet banks that are coming to the picture, starting from the scratch. They have like agile process and so forth. And once they kind of grow big enough, so then the big ones might be buying and gradually moving maybe their systems towards that direction. So it's a tricky thing, like how much can you patch and how much you need to kind of build from scratch.
I would like to add here that I really love this concept of blind spot, whether it's a personal development, leadership development, or optimizing the supply chain, or using those design thinking principles, because first of all, you can't have an effect on something that you don't know. So basically, to simplify it a little bit, we need to be able to make invisible visible, but you don't need to be wizard. You don't need magic to do that. You just need a simple tools, simple templates that everyone can learn to use. And I think we need to emphasize more and more training on these kind of skills to our organizations. Everyone who sees those blind spots in the team level, we can use like simple tools like journey mapping, service blueprints, ecosystem maps. It's not a rocket science. It's something that we just collect together, and we try to make visible how we are working. And when we are able to make it visible, then we are able to have an effect on it. Yeah.
And what is the impact of a badly designed process, internally and externally? What is the impact? I'm guessing externally would be maybe you could lose a customer because the customer experience is so bad. But what is the internal impact of that?
A friend of mine used to work for one American IT company in the end of 90s. And they, for example, had got outbound sales. And one of the measurements was that like how many minutes are you hanging around in the phone. So basically a bad measurement. And that led to the system that like people from the sales started calling each other in the internal phones. So the KPIs looked very good, but like of course like sales were tracking behind, and like after a certain time, so then the management noticed that oops, maybe this was not the right measurement, and then they changed it. But like you can really kind of drive the bad behavior and so forth, and like if you kind of pick up the wrong measurements, so then you are just kind of flying a plane, and like you have a broken measurements in there, so like you are underestimating or not doing, for example, decisions when needed. And of course, eventually that will be visible. For example, if we are losing customers, tracking kind of behind the competition and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think this kind of discrepancies, they are creating wrong demand. They are demanding our resources. They are demanding our attention, and that's something that we really need to pay attention more and more, and try to make it even more visible. And it starts by discussing about that. So we have a tendency of trying to easily to hide things, but when we are thinking about this I love the term that wrong kind of disturbance-based demand. So when we are trying to talk about it, then it's easier for us to criticize that if this action, what I'm now doing, whether I should be doing it at all, or yeah.
And I like what you're saying with regards to resources, Auntie, because what I know in supply chain is sometimes organizations spend quite a bit of money on systems, and the systems actually don't work for the people that are internal to the organization. And so what you find is people then working outside of the system and then inputting that thing or forcing that input into the system. And so instead of, I don't know, spending an hour on something, now you've spent a whole day, because first you had to kind of manually calculate this thing and then input it into the system and trick the system, or I don't know, like, you know, play around with the system so that it gives you what you want. Instead of using what the company has invested in.
Yes.
So yeah, I like the comment that you've made, and I think also one of the reasons for this is because organizations are quite cost sensitive, especially now with a lot of volatility in the economy and everybody becoming quite price sensitive. So what they end up doing is they don't want to fix the entire process like you guys have advised. They kind of are like, okay, well, this is our process. What is the cheapest way in which we can kind of, you know, and this creates some level of complexity, right? What are you guys' thoughts around that?
Yeah, that's like this kind of partial optimization that Yeah, I'm quite straightforward with how I verbalize things. I hate it because this local optimization, you are creating new, more complex problems, and you end up beforehand when you find an error, you are doing the things like twice. First, another way, then you are correcting it. But when you try to optimize it without thinking without not be able to think in the system as a whole, then you are creating new local optimizations that are creating new, even more bigger problems. So you are able to fix something, and then your colleagues in another department or the part of the supply chain, they are doing triple the work that they were able to do before.
And one example of that is like Swedish company Klarna, which is like a payment system for e-commerce and so forth. So they a couple of years ago they said like, okay, now once we have chat GPTs and so forth, so we will get rid of a couple of hundred people in our customer service. Well, let the AI do the job. So then they tried it for a while, then they noticed that the customer feedback is going down, and then they said like, okay, we need a few hundred back and so forth. So they started kind of hiring back those people that they. So you really need to kind of think about these changes and this sub-optimization that like what are you trying to do. Better example of that, like how to utilize, for example, AI and chatbot was the Finnish DNA, which is like second largest teleoperator in Finland, and how they see that like use of AI, that like they have basically 3 tiers. Like one tier is that like that like you have the kind of knowledge bank and AI on the top of that. One is that like you have a kind of self-service site that you can do a lot of things as a customer that you don't need the kind of customer service at all. And then the kind of most difficult cases go to the human beings which are enabled to co-work with the AI. So they utilize the same knowledge bases and so forth, but the complex cases can be kind of served faster once you have the AI support for the humans in there. So then they categorize in these 3 different tiers. So what kind of problem are we solving? So is it the kind of problem that can be solved with self-service? Is it the problem that like can be with the kind of knowledgeable chatbots? Or is it a complex problem that really requires human consideration and reasoning, but like they will be helped with the AI?
I actually really like that example, and we're seeing more and more of that already in different, like even in banking, for example. I think in your app you have the option to speak directly to like your banker, or you can just chat to the bot if you feel. Well, you start with chatting to the bot, then you realize no, it's not helping me, and then at least it gives you the option to speak to your banker, and then So I actually like that example, and I can kind of see in my own life where something like that is happening. So I like how you guys said, okay, don't add to a badly designed system, and I think we kind of see this with sustainability, right? I think a lot of organizations are kind of scrambling to become more sustainable, or at least appear to be more sustainable, but they are trying to build onto their current system. So it's not like something that they're trying to design from scratch, right? And it's kind of a tick box exercise. So why do you guys believe sustainability initiatives fail when system architecture isn't aligned?
I would maybe comment on that like oftentimes once the driver is, for example, regulation, like what we see in EU, so it's kind of people are a bit reluctant that they are just doing the minimum. But like it happened in certain industries in Finland, for example, that for example, on retail, that like the consumers are actually putting pressure much faster than the regulation. So that made the companies change actually faster towards sustainability practices than the regulation was like coming just like a couple of years down the line. So if you get the pressure from the customers, so that's often the best motivator for the companies to change, because otherwise they lose the customers and somebody else is taking it.
We have to remember that simple policies and monitoring, they don't change how we are making decisions, how we are behaving in our everyday work life. So, but systems, that is something that we are able to design, and what is affecting to our behavior. So I really believe that in terms of how the sustainability, it consists of our everyday decisions. But if we believe that someone else there is telling and monitoring what is the right choice and what wrong, we are going in the wrong path, because people are smart, and if we are able to delegate enough mandate, enough power to the front line and integrate the systems, I really believe that we humans, we are able to make correct decisions, those in the micro level decisions, and when we are accumulating them, then we are getting more and more like healthy, sustainable practices.
No, I agree. And do you guys believe that sustainable behavior can be intentionally designed?
Definitely.
As an internal example from the company, I used to work 25 years ago in an e-learning company, startup. And then once we were growing, so we noticed at some point of time that like, okay, marketing is not anymore talking to sales, and they are just like nagging about each other, and like different parts of IT teams are not talking to each other. So how we did the organizational change, and I happened to be the HR director. So I said that like those people, let's say back-end developers and the kind of architects, so they sit on one table, but the next table, like in a kind of hearing distance, is then the, for example, back-end programmers, then the front-end programmers, then the graphic designers, and the kind of web designers. So I basically designed the internal kind of workflow in a way that like you had the most important kind of counterparts in the same table, but like if you needed the next step of the process, you had to kind of looked at another table and kind of asked for help, or saying like, okay, how is this going? So that stopped basically the silos. Nobody were able to kind of talk anything bad about the other team, because they can hear. So why not just ask them like, I need help with this one, why is this like that? So that really kind of was one internal example that how the environment can affect the communication, and how you can support basically, for example, the process flows and the communication between the departments.
One large retail bank in Finland was able to change their whole organizational culture by starting like small pilot projects and getting the practical evidence of that design thinking is actually creating results. It's not all. It's very often it's not easy to sell the benefits of the design thinking to decision makers, because you are only using it when the problems are so complex and wicked that you really don't know what the answer will be. But when you get those small pilot projects, you get some kind of practical evidence that this is really working, then you can start to increase and scale. You have other torch bearers in the different units, and little by little you are able to reach it to the strategic level. And then we are able to change the organizational culture quite fast, but you need to do it like incrementally. Yeah.
And this is where collaboration and trust become quite important, right? So I know in supply chain, and I guess in everything, collaboration and trust are becoming more and more important. I think they were always important. However, we always kind of don't design for them. So can you use service design to kind of improve collaboration and trust?
Yes, I think it can be designed. First of all, we can practically design every process and I have been involved in the recent years quite many times in bigger or smaller projects when we have started design for instance some kind of organizational internal processes, and quite often they are HR processes, or some kind of, when we are dealing with the internal customers. So first of all, I really think that we can start by scratch and design, for instance, what kind of leadership behavior we are willing to have in our organization. And it has, according to researchers, it has a huge impact how people are actually behaving, what kind of decisions they are making. Then again, leadership, to put it to simplify it, it's always a goal-oriented interaction between two or more people. It's based on a trust, and the trust is actually quite simple. The first component is that if I promise to deliver something to you, I'm actually doing it. If I fail to deliver it, then our trust will be active, it will disappear. Also, I need to be careful to promise you what can I deliver. I don't want to promise anything that I can't deliver. That's the one component. Another component is transparency, and that's the difficult part, because transparency in our behavior means also that we need to be able to reveal our real inner selves, how we feel, how we think, and what kind of emotions we have. We need to be able to bring more vulnerability and actual like empathy in our organizations, because that's, I think, getting even more and more important when we are talking about trust, because that component of trust again is creating psychological safety. That is enabling us to speak up, to challenge ideas, create new and collaborate better together. Sorry for the long answer.
No, it's a good answer. It's a good answer. Okay. I like what you brought up with regards to psychological safety and trust. I actually remember a conversation that we're having recently with somebody that works in banking. We're just talking about like how these banks, these digital banks, are becoming more and more popular, especially within the youth. And I was arguing that as much as digital banks or banks that are completely digital are great, the problem is sometimes, because they obviously work on rules, you know, with regards to like, do you qualify for this, yes or no? And if it's a no, and sometimes you might not qualify. However, if you state your case to another human being, they'll understand and they can see like where the nuisances are and will allow you to get a loan or whatever. So I was saying to them, the bank, there's a particular bank, which is Standard Bank. It's not as like digitally versed as like your FNB or I don't know, we have like Discovery Bank as well in South Africa. They have very cool apps where you can do everything on the app, right? And a Standard Bank, I think it has an app, but you know, it's an okay app, you know. However, what I was saying I like about them is that if I have a problem and the system has like declined something of mine to say, oh no, you definitely can't afford this, or you can't do this thing, I can at least walk into the bank and speak to somebody. And if I like give them all the documentation that I think is important to prove my point, they will then at least consider or reconsider their decision. Versus now, if it's like a fully automated kind of system and it's a robot which you've programmed to kind of measure certain things and then determine whether somebody should be allowed to do something or not, then you are not able to like bring in that human intervention to say like, you know, actually, okay, these are our rules, but we can bend our rules a little bit in this way. Like, do you understand what I mean? And so I was just like saying that technology is great. However, we mustn't forget the importance of the human interaction and how that can help to create psychological safety. I mean, if I'm an employee of an organization and I know that a system is going to determine like, oh no, you're a bad employee, even if the decision I was making is warranted. Like, do you get what I mean? Like I had to intervene to say, I know for a fact, because I've been doing this job for many years, that this is a bad decision for the organization, and I override the system, then I get into trouble without anybody investigating why did you override the system. Maybe let's sit and chat to her. Then I kind of stop sharing my ideas at work because I'm scared that now, oh no, the system is going to say I'm wrong, and then you kind of remove that like psychological safety.
Yes.
So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are around that.
I fully agree on that, and I think you had a kind of consumer example, but it works also like between the organization. If you have business buyers and business kind of sellers, there's like not a single organization per se is buying from another, so there's always humans involved in there so far. And like many times, like if you have a tender and like you have all the offers on the table, you are making a 100 million euro investment on a plant or something. So you have all the facts, but like you still, there has been studies in Finland like many years ago that like you still would like to call to your friend in another position that like, okay, which one did you choose and why? So you still want to have this kind of human element and trust that like, okay, you made the decision 2 years ago and you're still hired, so I should listen to you and not just like numbers like what I have in Excel. And maybe kind of a second element is that once we will have more and more kind of these self-service things, and so we are losing that as a consumer, this human touch. From company's point of view, it might be the control and kind of efficiency that they want to push everything online and automized and so forth. But like we somehow need to kind of make sure that like we have channels for those people who would like to have the interaction, especially in Europe, China, Japan, where we have the kind of growing aging population, so they are not so kind of familiar and kind of competent with these tools. So we need to somehow serve them as well.
It was already 10, almost 15 years ago. We didn't know in general the concept of psychological safety back then, but I would like to jump a little bit to the healthcare sector to get a little bit different kind of example, because in that business, typically, traditionally, if you make an error or mistake, it's not so easy to tell others that now something bad happened, because the nature of the business, yes, exactly, and we are talking about, in a worst case scenario, life or death decisions. So how this kind of culture of using simple mistakes and errors as a component and enable for more effective learning can be done, then you have to be smart in a way that you can, for instance, increase more pair work or small teamwork, so that you don't have to be alone when you are telling others that now that was not correct, but we can learn from that. So then you are not alone. It's us that we noticed that error, and you can also use small external artifacts. How you are, you're making the flagging the error easier. So it's not just me against you guys. We have to get rid of that kind of setting, and it starts with affecting those practical artifacts of the culture, little by little.
I think one of the things that are very different between like our country and your country is I think the Nordic kind of countries, you guys work a lot on trust, right? There's like a high trust environment where you guys are from, and you have much flatter hierarchies, I don't know. And we don't have that in our countries. I think we have very low trust environments, and there's a lot of control. So I just want you guys to just talk us through how you got there, because I don't think it was always this way, and what are some of the benefits around having this kind of like high trust system.
Yeah. Well, I think it's first of all it's a cultural thing, and we have to go back to the history to understand the present. So we have gone through, as a nation in Nordics, go through several crises, and because we are so few and we are so isolated, the only option has been to be able to work together, because that has been only the only options for us to, in a way, survive and start to grow a little by little. But most of all, I still think that when we are going a little bit back to the nowadays, again it starts with the leadership behavior and learnings. And this morning we discussed, when we were having this lecture, about those different kind of leadership models. And if we are talking about the human goal-oriented interaction, basically it's built on the 4 different kind of cornerstones: trust, the appreciation, and then like the willingness to learn, and how we are able to motivate and enthusiasm each others. But coming back to the trust, before that there has to be enough appreciation between human beings. And it starts little by little by, starting to build structures that we are able to work more and more together, because problems, cases, challenges, they are a very effective way for us to get to know each other behind the professional curtains, to get to know who we really are in our good and bad days. And that's one way to structurally build this kind of culture of working together, and it's creating more trust.
And how do you think organizations confuse control and resilience? Because I think sometimes they think if we have a lot of control, we must be resilient, or we will definitely be resilient because we can kind of control how to react to certain things. How do you think organizations kind of confuse the two?
Yeah, I think you have this, one thing is kind of collaboration versus competition, which kind of culture you want to kind of build in your companies. And that has a huge effect on how we behave. Second, maybe that one example of how, for example, Finnish army is different from Russian army, if we go shortly to this topic, is Russian army is very power hierarchy is very high. So everybody's waiting the orders from the top and then executing and so forth. If somebody really high up is not there, so they are not doing anything in many cases, as we have read from the reports. In Finland, we have been trying years and years to build the culture both in the army and that we kind of empower people. So instead of them waiting for orders and otherwise being passive, so we rather kind of train them to the level that they are able to make the decisions. We kind of say that now it's your responsibility, your trust, you can make the decision in the group, for example. You don't need to wait for the leader. And sometimes it goes wrong, of course, but then we need to say okay, what do we learn from this, and let's go forward and so forth. Coming back to this psychological kind of trust.
It has to do with the speed and the agility. And when the dust hits the fan, when there are bad days, in front of us, the natural tendency is that we want to centralize decision making to a people who are able to see the bigger picture. And this is causing the effect that we are not making our work more effective, but we are harming the resiliency, and we are harming the flow of our everyday activities, because action always beats the reaction. And action can only happen if you are able to make the decision to act, and decision need to be able to done there where the situation occurs. So we need to turn the table upside down, and when the bad days are coming, we need to be able to decentralize the decision making, even though it makes our coming nights worse, because we can't sleep because we are lacking the sense of control. But again, human beings, they are incredibly smart with a huge amount of potential, and that's the only way how we are going to increase the resilience.
And I like what you're saying, because I do think if you are too controlling and you stop people from making their own decisions, the danger of that is then when you're not there, or the manager decides to leave the organization, then that team kind of suffers, because now everybody's too scared to make a decision, and you haven't taught them the skill of making their own decisions, and so it kind of leaves that team in a worse state than what you found them. So let's just chat a little bit about living labs, which I think is something that your university specializes in. Firstly, I think what is important is for you guys to explain what a living lab is and why you believe it's like a powerful tool.
Yeah. So let's say shortly, it started with kind of action learning environment, probably. We try to combine the gap between the industry and academia. We take the real life projects and do that. But it kind of grew to this kind of more kind of living lab concept in a sense that like we try to involve also the community, the end users, like of the services, for example, and so forth. So just to get beyond the boundaries of the academia, basically. So that's pretty much the concept. So in practice, so it might be that like I'm running this digital living lab now. So we have a small room equipped with certain digital devices like 3D printing and drones and like audio video equipment and so forth, robotics, IoT devices, Internet of Things and so forth. And we bring the students there, make sure that there's customer cases, customer kind of real life development cases, let them do the work utilizing the technology. So they learn a lot of these 21st century skills. So transversal working life skills that can be utilized in any position that they go further. So we really try to kind of give them the action orientation, this entrepreneurial spirit, problem solving, critical thinking skills, digital skills and so forth. Understanding a customer's business and like understanding the end users. So this is it's a long answer, but like these are the elements that are in there.
And it's I really love the concept of like those entrepreneurial like attitudes and even entrepreneurial attitude. And we are starting it already when we are talking about the goals of the project in Living Lab or other project-based learning. We are starting to talk about these kind of like entrepreneurial ways to behave and take action, take responsibility, take ownership. And we are talking about when we are setting the goals, and we are also evaluating how the teams or how the people, how they are able to take the, the action, take the initiative and create something new. And that's very important. But again, if you are not making it visible, you are not getting what you measure.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that because I do think university and industry need to collaborate in designing what the future will look like. It's not necessarily that just because you have an organization or you are an organization, you know what the future should look like. I think there's a lot of research being done in universities that's currently not being used. And so I like what you guys are saying. So I don't know if you have any thoughts around just the role that universities play in kind of co-creating the future with industry.
Yeah, first of all, we need to be very close to the industries to kind of to be relevant, and how we try to ensure that, like in Laura, is like for every program every degree that we have. So we have this kind of working life panel, which is meeting like twice a year. And with this panel, so we have kind of open discussions that, okay, how relevant are, for example, these 21st century skills? How relevant are our curriculums, and do you happen to have any projects and stuff like this? So we have, in that sense, we have a kind of direct access to them, and we can then see like what kind of maneuvering we need to do. Second of all, we have this about 90 to 100 key partners, so where we kind of very closely work with. So they are bringing us these real life projects. We can do theses for them. We can invite them to our R&D, externally funded R&D programs, and we can invite them to the lectures, for example, and so forth. So it's kind of multi-level collaboration. So with these type of elements, we can ensure that we are relevant there. And in very practice, then it might be that we are using, let's say, co-creation toolkit that was created by one of our former colleagues, and that means that like you basically have a big board on a table that you bring all the, for example, supply chain kind of actors, or like all the actors in the different parts of the process, and you make them to kind of visualize the process themselves. So then they can visualize also the problems. They can visualize, okay, here should be a better link between these actors or activities and so forth.
Yeah, I really think that if we just able to look it right, we can get the best from the both worlds. So the universities are able to, bring to the table more evidence-based, like situational image of the current world, and build the images of the alternative futures by futures thinking, and different kind of scenario thinking. But however, the industries and companies, they bring to the table context, constraints, and first of all, the urgency. So time wisely. So they are, you know, ensuring that if something is coming out from the pipeline, and please, maybe the sooner the better.
No, I do like what you're saying, and I think like the nice thing about universities is they are, well, this might be a very unfair statement, but they are non-biased, you know, and so I find even when I attend conferences, especially industry conferences, there tends to be quite a lot of bias of organizations towards themselves, like to say, oh no, we are the best, hydrogen is the best sustainable energy, or, you know, and I think universities, the nice thing is, we don't think hydrogen is bad, but we know that there are other options that you know they should investigate as well. And so I think I like what you guys are saying. In that, I think we bring in kind of a non-biased view. I mean, we're not perfect, but but yeah, I think.
And maybe as one example, like I've been also on a kind of selling side. Like if you happen to work for, let's say, e-learning company, and you have a software to sell or something like that, of course you have this sales cap on, and everything is smooth and nice and so forth. And like then if you are kind of listening to those seminars, so like then everything is beautiful and right and just bias and like so forth. So it's very kind of healthy that we have like also the university saying like, okay, what do we know at large about this, and how can we actually kind of improve our everything like by working together.
Because in industry the competition is so high, so everyone is, you know, diving there below the surface. They try to go into the like the other surface, and by doing that they try to imagine what would be the competitive advantage, and it's creating lots of like biases there. So again, like try to find the best of the both worlds, and cooperating instead of, you know, just thinking from your own point of view. And then just around AI, I just want to ask, because, you know, the example that I gave with regards to AI is making things a lot more efficient, but sometimes you do need that human touch, or you need kind of human-centered design, right? So what is human-centered design, and how do you create this in highly automated environments?
I checked some research data like a month ago, like what, how does the AI and productivity kind of going hand in hand or not going hand in hand? Because there's this paradox, Solov's paradox, that is saying that like a computer age is visible everywhere except in the productivity statistics. But now it seems that like if you have the kind of simple tasks, so you might be able to kind of improve your productivity at the individual level, maybe 45-60% even. But if you have complex tasks, like the productivity gain might be only like 15-20% of that range. So we can kind of utilize it at many levels at the individual kind of employee level or organizational level. But we really need to see that like if the processes are broken and the data is not there to support it, so then it's just like kind of point solutions that are not kind of maybe contributing to the big picture.
So I think it's a good idea to start to like redesign those workflow first, and then add the AI there, because like the decisions making is something that is making our life, everyday life, harder, and the less decisions we need to make, the better flow and more effective our life is going on. So the role of the AI should be there, first of all, to remove decisions, not add any more dashboards or any something new to learn. But if we are not taking the workflow as a starting point, then we are going in the wrong direction.
And I like what you're saying about like decision fatigue. Like if somebody is making too many decisions in a day, then the chances of you know, getting something wrong increase quite a bit. Or you just make a decision just to get out of it, you know, because you don't want to think about it anymore.
Yes,
so
when you're having your breakfast and opening your laptop, you are already like done and finished before the noon, because you have done so many micro level decisions, and you have done and burdened all of those cognitive, you know, capability you have for that day. And we should really try to get rid of that kind of phenomenon and reduce the amount of decisions so that we have more time for really like creative thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And if there's one thing that you think professionals should take away from this conversation, what do you believe that one thing is?
I would say that go out of the building. Too often we are kind of, for example, developing new services and products like in the basement, like which is just internal stuff. So if you go outside of the building and like get the customers and users involved, different stakeholders and so forth, so immediately the starting point will be kind of to the right direction. And then maybe stealing this quote is the kind of simplify. That like try to get rid of the complexity everywhere that is possible. So you can use the kind of communication to do that, and then of course like nowadays automate and use AI where is possible, what makes sense, but like where you need the human touch. So ask the customers like if they want that, so then you need to somehow properly offer that.
Yeah, we don't need to work anymore like more. We need to work more smart and well, one key point or advice is that we are not, we can only take a limited amount of power from the existing engines. So stop squeezing people, stop pushing people. Instead, start to redesign the workflow and environment that we are working in. Redesign complete from the scratch. Then remove all the obstacles possible when we are working, and then finally let's make the frontline people, let's delegate the authority and the decision making process. Then we are able to little by little to make everyone's sort of everyday work success.
I mean, I even like what you guys are saying, because I think a lot of now business professionals or business leaders, they have this advice of stop sitting with an idea. If you really want to know if there's an interest in this particular product, put it out as a waiting list, and if people are willing to sit and wait for the product, then probably there's a demand for that particular thing, rather than spending many hours, thinking about whether the product will work or not. So I think just to close off, what resource or practice would you guys recommend to leaders that want to understand service design more deeply, and then where can our listeners connect with your work?
So maybe I would go to one of the classics. So this is service design doing. So there's a book before this is service design thinking, but like this is the doing part, the next book by Mark Stickdorn. And there are some free materials available at thisisservicedesigndoing.com.
Okay.
And you can connect me via LinkedIn or OrgID, like related to the research stuff.
Okay.
Last year I recommend us to get to know better each others, get to know more, and start networking. So I recall that last year I was recommending for us to get to know the Service Design Global Network. This year I would like to give one book, and it's called Expand, Stretching the Future by Design. And it's Danes Christian Payson and Jens Martin Skipstead that have written this book. It's from 2022 or something, but it's really something taking the design thinking to the next level. So it's like a turbo version of design thinking. So expand it and creating the future that we don't know that really exists. Yeah, that's my recommendation.
Okay, and where can they connect with you? Also LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, yeah, I would love to continue our conversation in the LinkedIn. So thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been so a pleasure, much appreciated. Thank you.
No, thank you guys for joining us. We've clearly started a tradition. So next year, this time, I hope we're going to have another episode. We will be discussing more about service design from a different angle.
Thank you so much. Let's make a deal.
Thank you so much.